What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Grizzly Bear Blues Live. I'm your host, Parker Fleming, recording this on Thursday, the day after the Grizzlies keep their season alive and decide to win Game 5, take it back to LA for Game 6, and hope to bring it back home for a Game 7 in front of a ruckus Memphis crowd. And so we're going to break down Game 5, preview Game 6, with a very special guest. But first, before I do that, let me tell you, I can keep in touch with the show and with the blog. So Grizzly Bear Blues Live is the flagship podcast for the Grizzly Bear Blues Podcast Network, alongside the Next Gen Podcast, Starting Five Podcast, and Core 4 Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever. We're also on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces instead at the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. And we are also have all of our work over at bluffcitymedia.co. And also, too, before I introduce my guests, I got to tell you, we have another watch party coming. High Cotton Brewery, 8 o'clock. We'll have a pregame show, postgame show. Insiders get their first beer for free. That sounds like a great deal to me. $1 off pints. You don't want to miss out. It's going to be a lot of fun. The last one was a lot of fun, except for that first quarter. But enough of that. Let's introduce the guest. He is the host of the Gabe Kuhn Show on 92.9 ESPN. He is also a co-host of On the Bluff, the show, the premier show for the Bluff City Media Network. Gabe Kuhn. Gabe, what's up, man?
What's the word, man? How we doing? I had a great time at the watch party, regardless of the first quarter.
Yeah,
had a great time, man. We had a loud cheer when they finally got to double digits, got to 10 points. People got hyped up.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just a riveting experience once it got to double digits, and we're like, yes, 10 points. There we go. We got this. But yeah, and also another thing I forgot to mention, former University of Memphis football player. And so
yes, sir.
We're gonna be getting into the trenches today, Gabe, because the Grizzlies, they pull up a 116-99 victory over the Los Angeles Lakers. And it really felt like John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., they set the tone. I mean, John and Bane each had over 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Jaren Jackson Jr. also had an 18-point, 10 rebound double-double. They combined for 30 of the 52 rebounds. Your three best players just getting after it on the glass. How did you see that just set the tone for the Grizzlies in Game 5, especially with the urgency in a win-or-go-home scenario?
They had immediate intensity that you could tell. I mean, obviously not just the rebounding throughout the game, but just first play of the game, first possession from the Grizzlies. You saw them try to pop Desmond Bane out. He gets to the nail. He knocks down a mid-range jump shot. Those guys came out. They knew what they had to do to make sure that series got extended. And it was really a response game, right? Because Game 4, down the stretch of that game, a lot of those guys sort of fell by the wayside. You saw Dez miss a couple of open threes. You saw Josh struggle to finish at the rim as the fourth quarter wore on. But I really saw it as a response. Those guys knew what they needed to do, and they went and did it.
Absolutely. And, you love to see that. And it's also just Morant and Bane in particular, they played with so much force.
Yep.
They really got to their spots downhill early in the game. They were getting downhill early in the shot clock. That I was going back through the film, and a lot of Ja's finishes, there were still 16, 17, 18 seconds left on the shot clock, where it's just you know what? We're going to go put pressure on this defense. We're going to force them to defend us early. We're not going to give them time to get into their defensive set. We are going to just go downhill and just shove it down their throats. And we're going to punch them in the mouth early. And it obviously worked. They scored 38 points in that first quarter to jump out to a 14-point lead. And, the winners of each game so far have won the first quarter. So
right.
It seems like whoever's throwing that first punch, they're going to stick with it and they're going to win. But I don't know. It just felt like it meant a lot more that, There's obviously been some questions here about the Grizzlies and their maturity and their poise. I mean, that
Yep.
game 3 start was an utter disaster. And then they had some late game woes in game 4. They've had these road struggles all year. Yeah. And then I'm not going to get into the whole media availability
Right.
dynamic, but there's just a lot of chatter about the Grizzlies maturity coming from the leaders on the team. And the fact that you had Ja, Jaren, and Bane all respond and basically decide for everyone's like, hey, let's go into game 6 and we're going to try to bring it back here for game 7. I felt like it was just a really good sign given everything that's really gone on around this team the past week.
Yeah, and we've had those ups and downs, but you always get those subtle, maybe not so subtle reminders of where this team is at. Like sort of, I mean, considering this big 3, I hate to put it this way, but this is the best way I can put it. It feels like a golden era of Grizzlies hoops, considering you have 3 guys in playoff games who, 4 guys historically who've gone for 30 points and 10 assists in a playoff game. One of those is Zebo, and then the other 3 are Ja, Jaren, and Bane. I mean, you have the other 3 guys are on the roster right now and seemingly will be on the roster going into the future. So, like, I mean, you've had these issues throughout this series down the stretch of the season. You've had Ja with his issues even dating back to last offseason, but you still get these subtle reminders of where this team is at least on the floor, and it's pretty damn impressive. It is very damn impressive when you consider it and look at sort of the historical value of it.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact, they're getting these playoff reps, early. This is their 3rd playoff series together. Obviously, Bane, or not playoff series, but 3rd playoff season together.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, Bane was just a rookie in that Utah one, but like this is their 4th playoff series together. They're getting a lot of scars and growing together. And, I think this one is probably the testiest of them all, just with everything going on around the team, the adversity they've been facing, and the fact that like, hey, this is your 2nd straight season in a row as the 2nd seed, and you're also going up against probably one of the 2 or 3 most methodical postseason players of all time,
Yep.
LeBron James, and a dominant big man in Anthony Davis. And I mean, they're responding well. I mean, I also forgot to ask this when it comes to the rebounding. I mean, Ja, Bane, and Jackson, 30 rebounds, and they didn't win the rebounding battle. The Lakers had 54 rebounds to the Grizzlies 52. That's because AD had almost 20 by himself. LeBron had 10 as well. Austin Reeves also had 8 rebounds. But I got to ask you, from a guy that was on the line, what did you just? It had to be some good hoops for you to watch.
I mean,
battle in
they just grinded it out, man. They grinded it out. It really, I mean, beyond the rebounding, and I will say with the rebounding with this Lakers series, it's not necessarily about winning the battle, because I don't think the Grizzlies and Steven Adams and Brandon Clark have gone out are really overly capable of winning a rebounding battle consistently against this Lakers team. But you just have to cut into that margin. You have to cut into that margin. But those guys really worked their ass off on the boards and did everything they could to try to cut into that margin. And it's good to see that sort of dirtier work out of your star players, But man, really the key to last night, and this is it's going to sound so corny and so like oversimplified, if you will.
Yeah.
But they made open shots, man. They made open shots. And like you talk about all the game plan components that you can come up with. I think making open shots is about all they needed to do the games 1 through 4 to put themselves in better situations. And they just didn't do it. And last night you finally saw it come to fruition.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you and Connor Dunning talk about it on your show, and I was texting back and forth with Connor about it, but like this was just putrid is not even like the right word to come up with their shooting. It was beyond awful, man. And I was looking at it all, and so for one, I mean, obviously the culprit everyone's going to talk about is Dillon Brooks.
Some of these stats you were sending, by the way, Parker, are just insane.
Yeah, I'll tell some of the listeners here.
Wild.
So right now, after Game 5, Dillon Brooks leads the postseason in wide open threes per game at 5.6. He is making a quarter of them. But the thing is, this is where it gets wild. It's like you go down the list and Desmond Bane, he's shot 4 games. So he's shot 20 wide open threes. What's considered by wide open threes is a defender is 6 feet out or further. He's shooting 19%.
Oh, man.
Tyus Jones is shooting 2.3 per game. So about, Okay. For some reason, the NBA website has not updated this since yesterday, right, which is kind of insane.
But this was as of yesterday. That's
as
still
of
wild.
Yesterday. I mean, Tyus Jones was shooting 11% on wide open threes. Like, that's just you were just getting some bad shooting.
You weren't getting anything.
The Grizzlies were shooting 30% on wide open threes. In the NBA in 2023, you are not going to win a basketball game. Actually, I take that back. The New York Knicks were the only team with a worse percentage, and they just beat the Cavaliers.
Yeah, right. But
4 games to 1. So, I mean, okay, whatever. But, yeah, I mean, like, you could have this immaculate game plan. You could be like, all right, we're going to stop LeBron James and Anthony Davis from doing this. We're going to contain Austin Reeves here. We're going to, Ruby Hachimura killed us. Now we're going to attack that closeout and we're going to close out harder and make him attack the closeout and make decisions there. You do that all you want. You can come up with this great game plan. And it's one of those things where everyone wants to blame Taylor Jenkins for the series so far.
Right.
But the real blame is the fact that you just can't hit open shots.
And Taylor Jenkins, you can have certain criticisms for him. In game 4, and we really saw this in game 5, and we'll probably get to this in a moment. In game 4, you have the questions, why the hell is Dillon Brooks out there in an in-game situation when you don't have him covering LeBron? Right? That's my one big criticism of Taylor Jenkins. But everything else, they're getting open threes. They have stopped Anthony Davis 2 of the 5 games so far. And I mean, stopped. He's been horrible in 2 of the 5 games. Mm-hmm. And then I just look, generally speaking, people will talk about his rotations in general. And I don't know. I guess you could have a little bit of criticism, but I don't know how easy the answers are for him. I mean, in pregame availability yesterday, he was basically asked about what he's doing with his rotations between Roddy and Conchar. And then he talked about Tyus and Luke, and he was talking about Santi as well. But then he talked about Tyus and Luke. He's like, so we basically have Tyus and Luke, and he stopped himself mid-sentence. He said, basically, that's it. We just have Tyus and Luke. He doesn't have a whole lot of answers as far as his bench rotations are concerned. And you have Santi Aldama and David Roddy thrust into action in year 1 for them in the playoffs, right? So it's it's not easy. It's not an easy situation to deal with. And he's doing sort of the best he can. And I know that's not always what people want to hear, but that's the truth of it. I don't think any of these answers are very easy when it comes to who he's bringing on the bench, how many minutes they're going to play. Obviously, Tyus and Luke are going to get the most minutes, but outside of that, you have to decide game to game what that rotation is going to look like and who's answering the call.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another thing too that I think is going under the radar a little bit is the adjustment on the 3-point defense. I mean, the Lakers won that game 1 because they got hot from 3, because the Grizzlies were overhelping. They were they admitted, we wanted Ruby Hachimura to take those shots.
Yep.
Get 5 3-pointers. But since then, I'm going to read this off to you. Game 2, 7 of 26.
Yep.
Game 3, 7 of 28. Game 4, 10 of 36. Game 5, 10 of 39. So not only are they holding them from an accuracy standpoint, but also a volume standpoint as well. I mean, there's been a bunch of different factors. I mean, they're not helping on LeBron as much, and he's just settling for threes, and he's actually shooting worse than Dillon Brooks in the series. And obviously respecting Ruby Hachimura more. They're not helping as much. So they're just, they're letting guys like Reeves and Russell and James and Davis, they're just letting them have it inside. They're like, okay, we'll throw at least one other body at you, but it's going to be somebody that's already helping from like the low block or helping at the nail and like be like, okay, well, we're not going to leave a shooter open. So it's either force a turnover or force a contested jumper or a contested layup. And it's going to be hard. But I mean, it's going to boil like everything right now. Everything's magnified. And let's just go ahead and talk about it. It's the giant elephant with sunglasses and Dior in the room with Dillon Brooks and the decision to play him because, you know, like I've been a long truther of Dillon Brooks. And I think there's two things that can exist. I don't want there to be some sort of revisionist history on Dillon Brooks and his impact because he has been very instrumental in setting a tone and a culture over the past 4 years here.
Yep.
But sometimes you just don't have it in a playoff series. And that doesn't, you can't rely like, oh, he's been this guy for us all this time. Unless you're like a legit cornerstone players like John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., you're expendable in a playoff rotation because it's time to go win basketball games. It's time to, you got to go save the season. Before he got COVID, they did that with Steven Adams last year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember that.
He got torched in game 1. And then 3 minutes into game 2, it was still happening. You know what? Taylor Jenkins like, all right, I'm pulling the plug. Xavier Tillman's coming in. And it doesn't erase how important Steven Adams is to the Grizzlies. It's just like, okay, he's not important. Not that he's not important. He's not effective and impactful for us right now. Yep. This is hurting our chances of winning this game. And with Dillon Brooks, he's not guarding LeBron well. And the defense, that he's a great defender. It's not outweighing the fact that the Lakers just are giving him the Tony Allen treatment, being like, hey, shoot, please shoot.
And he'll consistently take the bait. He'll consistently take that bait.
He takes the bait all the time. I mean, last night, 3 of 15 from the field. He led the Grizzlies in three-point attempts at 10. And finally, this is where Taylor Jenkins gets some credit. And it's, I mean, please, for the love of God, I hope Luke Kennard is okay. If he's out for game 6, the basketball gods are just punishing the Grizzlies for their attitude, and the NBA script writers are just going absolutely crazy. Yep. But Dillon Brooks, I think he did this in the first half and he did this in the second half. He had clanked a wide open 3, which was in the midst of other misses. He did make 2, but for Dillon Brooks, all he needs is 1. All he needs is 1 3 to know that he thinks he has it. Taylor Jenkins pulled him like 8 minutes left in the third quarter. He doesn't pull guys that early unless it's foul trouble. He was like, you know what, Dillon, I'm putting Luke in. And it became clear as day of, hey, this might be a solution. Luke Kennard, the Grizzlies outscored the Lakers by 26 points in 18 minutes.
It was insane.
Those other 30 minutes with Dillon Brooks on the floor in a 17-point game, they got outscored by 7 points. So it's tough. It's so easy, but it's so tough at the same time because the difference with last year with Steven Adams, you had an option. You had obviously the other end of the stick was, okay, yeah, Brandon Clark, who's an obvious fit in this matchup, but he also had Xavier Tillman. For Dillon Brooks, it's like, okay, Luke Kennard's the obvious answer. But when Luke Kennard needs a rest, are you going to go David Roddy? Are you going to go John Conchar? Or are you going to go Zaire Williams? Like, at the end of the day, that option's still Dillon Brooks right now.
Yeah.
Grizzlies' depth. So it's tough. Where do you land on this?
I land firmly in the boat of Dillon needs to be sat down for extended periods of time going forward into game 6. I just don't know how you watch what you watched last night and you don't see that, right? You talked about that 8:15 mark when he got taken out in the third. They had a 3-point lead. When he came back in with 11:15 left in the fourth, they had a 22-point lead. Mm-hmm. They did all that without him, right? And I think they had a 19-2 run to end the third. The spacing is fantastic. Like, Luke Kennard doesn't even have to knock down shots. He only had 6 points last night. Right. He doesn't even have to knock down shots, but the threat of him and the space that there is to operate for everybody else, John Morant going and getting to the rim at will because of the space out there. Desmond Bain can do the same thing, right? And then you have guys that are standing on the wings or in the corners that are shot ready to put up a 3-point shot. So like I look at the sort of how this team operates offensively without Dillon, and I think that it's time to see what happens with him off the floor for an extended period of time. What I mean, he's still going to have to play considering what they have on the roster right now, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Like I that's sort of what I would look at, but I mean 30 minutes worth of Dillon Brooks as a -7 and seeing Luke Kennard in 17 minutes be a +26. I don't know how you look at that and keep going back into the well for Dillon Brooks when he's going to be demonstrative, when you know he's always at risk to put up a shot or put up too many shots and miss too many shots and kill you offensively. And I just look at Dillon too. The last was 9 playoff games because he had a suspension for one.
Yeah.
So I guess you could count that suspension. He had 2 ejections within his last 9 playoff games. He shot 30%. And I just he hasn't been good as of late in the playoffs. And you just have to ask yourself at some point, is it worth having him out there in must-win games consistently if he's going to continue to be as bad as he has been? So usually you say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but it's broke and you have the means to fix it. So I mean, just get out the screwdriver, right? Get out your tools and go fix it. So I don't really understand why, considering also last year in the Timberwolves series that you already brought up, Taylor Jenkins was easily able to sit down Steven Adams. I don't know why it's been so hard for him to sit down Dillon Brooks in the same capacity.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I wish that this wasn't a season from hell for Zaire Williams. I think Zaire Williams is the guy that steps right in, but also too, like, obviously I don't want to like treat Luke Kennard like he's been like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. Like you said, like he attempted 3 threes last night. He made 2 of them. I mean, hell, he attempted as many threes as field goal attempts that Dillon Brooks made. And he also made as many threes as Dillon Brooks made and 7 fewer attempts. But also, like, it's still just like you said, it's one of those things of like the defense has to respect Kennard. They're like, okay, they're playing the law of math here. It's a high possibility that Luke Kennard's going to make threes. We will take them making 2-pointers if it means less Luke Kennard threes. And I still think the Grizzlies need to do a better job of finding him. The Lakers have done a good job on their game plan, but there's so many of these drives from Ja or Bane, and I'm like, Luke is in the corner. That's like that's a free corner 3. Like that's almost a layup that's like almost a mid-range jumper for Luke Kennard. Like just like go to the corner, but also at the same time, it's just like that spacing gives you so much more optionality. Like literally the entire paint it's all the driving lanes. It just opens up like the Red Sea. And
helps out Jaren too. I mean, it helps out everybody. It does. And you can't ignore it. It just looks better offensively. And the passes are crisper. It's just cleaner. It's substantially cleaner. When you have Dillon out there and no one's respecting him, his defender just becomes a roamer. And I don't think this team, with how much they rely on Ja Morant as an offensive focal point, can have that. You don't need somebody helping on defense trying to sort of clog up the paint. I mean, that's if this team wants to be successful, they have to have Ja clicking on all cylinders. And I don't think without spacing that's going to be possible consistently.
Absolutely. But I mean, also just hoping and praying to God and the basketball gods that Luke Kennard's all good.
Right.
We just hope that it's just a stinger. Man, I just hope it's just a stinger.
He had sort of the dead left arm. I see what concerned me is he got hit on the right shoulder
And held his left.
and held his left, and it looked like his left got sort of caught when he was trying to
That's what he had said
get
in
around the
post-game.
screen. But I don't know. How did you take Taylor Jenkins' tone? He said, could he was basically asked, could Luke Kennard have come back in the game? And he gave it a maybe with a question mark at the end. So, like, what did you think of his tone?
I kind of take it as like we aren't gonna put this guy back in the game with
Yeah.
a 20-point lead. There's no need. A 20-point lead in the fourth quarter. But also too, like, I don't know. I kind of take just some of the, like, read into it a lot, the fact that both Taylor Jenkins and Luke Kennard had stingers, but also too the fact that the injury update from the PR account from Valley Sports, they said doubtful return instead of just out. But I mean, they said they were going to do more testing today, but I mean, I kind of took it as like, hey, let's just make sure we say the right things.
Yeah.
Because also too, at the same time, you don't want to say, oh yeah, just a stinger, I'm fine.
You don't want to overpromise and then not have him.
You don't want to, because like it could pull up where it's like that, they get the MRI and it's like, oh wait, this is worse than we thought, and then he's out for game 6. So yeah, I also too want to ask, last night, like, I thought you got modest contributions across the board from everyone else. Obviously, Jaren, Bain stood out. What's going to need to happen, or who's going to need to step up for the Grizzlies to steal this game 6 and take it back home for game 7?
I mean, the obvious answer for me is Luke Kennard consistently being in the game. But who needs to step up? I think as you travel out to LA, it's going to have to be those same guys. It's going to have to be those same guys. It's going to have to be Ja. It's going to have to be Bain. I don't know how much you can count on role players being any type of focal point on the road in the crypt. I just don't know if you can. So I think the same contributions from Dez and from Ja are completely in line. They both had 30 last night. I know that's not a commonality, but I think trying to replicate that performance would serve their best interest. And also, what was it? Dez yesterday, he said, I said it out there and I'll say it again. We're going to be back for a game 7 in front of the best fans in the NBA. So he's already put his stamp.
Yep. So is X. X said it too. So yeah, we'll see y'all for game 7.
Okay.
But also, the guy that I'm really looking at for game 6 is Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he had a solid game 4. He had 14 rebounds and 5 blocks and 14 points, but both games 3 and 4, he shot 33%. I mean, I think the Lakers have countered well, and they've thrown a lot of randomness at him, but a lot of it too is like, okay, we're going to put Anthony Davis on him.
That's tough.
And it's affecting him. It is affecting how he's getting to his spots in the post, and he just hasn't been as good. And in those games 3 and game 4, he had 6 turnovers and 4 turnovers. A lot of them is just like a lot of it is spacing. It's not even just the fact of Dillon Brooks, but like Xavier Tillman's not a respectable shooter either. Right. And teams typically play under and sag off Ja a little bit as well. So just spacing gets cramped. So like Jaren still kind of working his footwork a little bit. He can just kind of be a little bit of a baby deer sometimes when it comes to his driving. He kind of goes out of control. Still needs to learn how to set screens. Like, my gosh.
God.
The fouling narrative would be done.
If he could set screens. It's unbelievable.
That's all he has to do.
I can't understand it. It doesn't seem, I mean, obviously the NBA and some of the angles you have to have, it becomes a whole lot tougher, but damn, I mean, we're working pretty substantial years into his career. That's gotta be part of the skill set at some point. It's got to start being part of the bag.
Has to. So yeah, you need it. Can you get an average to above average Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Yeah.
But also,
what I have noticed though, and he's had his struggles, and I think any big against AD is going to have their struggles, right? I mean, just he's one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA, and what he can do in rebounding, affecting shots, it's tough. But I still did like to see last night when he found his mismatches, he picked them apart. He went for them. He had Austin Reeves at one point matched up against him, and he was able to lay it off the glass. Like, he's still picking apart his mismatches. He sees his spots and where to attack them. It's just hopefully he can get that done on a more consistent basis going into Game 6.
Mm-hmm. Another guy I'm keeping an eye on big time, David Roddy.
Okay,
especially
all right.
too if Kennard can't go, or even if Taylor Jenkins decides, like, okay, let's go give Roddy a try instead of Conchar. I still think it's been, an up and down series for Roddy. He wasn't really good in LA. I mean, really.
But Game
How
5,
many
he was
players
really
were
the
good in
only.
LA?
Yeah, no, the bench was not good in LA, but Game 5 or Game 4, I should say. Or no, what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Game 4.
Mm-hmm.
When he had 9 points in the first half. Like, he was one of the few that actually stepped up in a moment that they needed him. So I
Yeah.
mean, hopefully he can replicate that. But I've liked some of his contributions. I like David Roddy overall as a player. I think he gives you versatility, so a little bit of 3-point shooting. But he will, if he feels, and that's what happened in Game 4. He sort of felt his offensive game was working, so he started chucking a little bit, and
A
he ended
little
up
bit.
3 for 10,
A little bit.
right? Yeah, so I guess you sort of have a little bit of that Dillon factor with him. But I liked what he did in that first half of Game 4. I think he's capable of making something happen on the road.
Yeah, I mean, with him, it's not more of just the chucking, it's the fact that he drives, but his explosiveness kind of comes in waves. Like, obviously, he has some points where he just go in and cram it on someone's head, but also too, like, he's also 6'5", 6'6", 250. Sometimes you're just not gonna have that lift.
Yep.
But I mean, a thing that's a key too is, especially with Luke Kennard's status up in the air and how Dillon Brooks has been. I mean, games 2 and games 4, the Lakers defense, like, all right, David Roddy, shoot the basketball.
Yep. Go for it.
3 of 7, 2 of 6. So when he shoots with volume, he can be counted on to not just go, like, he can be counted on to not go like 0 of 6 or 1 of 6 or 1 of 7. He's going to knock down shots. And I think when it comes to an elimination game on the road, you got to have guys that can hit shots and not be fearless on it either, because there's some guys where it's like the defense sags off and there's that psychology of like, oh, wait, they're not respecting me. I'm not going to shoot. I'm just going to move the basketball. You need a guy that's kind of fearless in that. It's like, all right, I'm open. I'll shoot. Sometimes it's to a detriment because sometimes it's Dillon Brooks doing that. But I think this is going to –
Dillon Brooks is open and shot ready at all times. I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. I just think this could be a big game for David Roddy. Personally, but yeah, I know we're all about out of time here, but I gotta ask a big question.
Yep.
Are the Grizzlies coming back home on Sunday for Game 7?
Oh gosh, this is so tough. I would lean against it just because I think going on the road, going to the Crypt, it's really tough to win a game there. And that team's been really good with our home court since the trade deadline with 6 new faces. One thing that is a silver lining to me, though, is I thought the Lakers had dad legs last night, like the type of legs that it is a actual sport to get up and down out of your chair. I mean, LeBron had no lift on his jumper. He couldn't knock down a 3 the entire night. And honestly, this is going to be what, 3 games in 5 days. So, I mean, this is a team with 2 veteran superstars. They're getting older. AD is injury prone. I mean, I want to see how their bodies respond, but I'm sorry, I still have to lean the Lakers' way going back home and closing it out.
I'm gonna hedge. I'm gonna hedge on Luke Kennard's availability, and I think it's because if he is available and he's good to go, I think Taylor Jenkins will commit to the adjust and play Luke Kennard more than Dillon Brooks, as long as you're not getting absolutely killed on defense. John Bain, the spacing for them does work out, and then they find Luke Kennard. I kind of hedge on that. I think you have a shot, but I'm with you on the fact that, like, the Dallas, but also too, and a chance to close out at home. LeBron's not going 5 of 17.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
The Lakers do not want to travel back out to Memphis and try to close out the Grizzlies on the road. Like they know, because I think if that happens, Grizzlies win the series. I think if the Grizzlies win this game, I think the Grizzlies win the series. But I think it's going to be a massive uphill battle. But I do think about what could have been, man. Grizzlies last night could have been up 3-2. It could have been a 3-2 series, considering they were up by 2 with 6 seconds left in game 4. I mean, the margins razor thin in the playoffs, and we've been shown that.
Yep. And I will say, I don't want to make any sort of excuses, and I was going to refrain from this on Twitter, but I'm also just going to let this fly with about 3:30 left in our Zoom. The Lakers aren't your typical 7 seed, and I'm not saying that because they have LeBron James and AD, but they went through one of the most, when it comes to a team, not just obviously they're superstar trades, but they went through a very seismic change at the trade deadline to bring pieces that actually fit next to their team and ones that are actually good. I mean, the Russell Westbrook thing cleared a pathway for Austin Reeves to kind of take this year 2, year 3 lead. It's still pretty unexpected from him, but he stepped up as a reliable 3B guy to D'Angelo Russell's 3A when he doesn't have it. Obviously Vanderbilt, Russell, Rui, they all fit better next to LeBron and AD. And then also too, there's still LeBron James, Anthony Davis. But I mean, this has been a good series. I'm very glad that it hasn't been the fans from the Lakers side haven't been as toxic as Warriors fans. It's been I've really enjoyed this series.
I have, but this is where we're at now. I gotta say, you mentioned the Warriors fans and the Lakers fans. The Grizzlies are our last hope to save us from a Lakers-Warriors series. They're our last hope.
The Kings and the Grizzlies both are one game away from elimination, which would be tough.
I need them to save us from it. I really do. Good Lord. By the way, Elon Musk, for a series like that's going to have to work overtime. The amount of suspended accounts he's going to have on both sides on Twitter. Good Lord.
It's going to be insane. In honor of most games, and also one of my wife's favorite part of the games, I will say 2 minutes. Gabe, anything else you want to say?
I think I'm all good, man. I think I'm all good. Looking forward to game 6.
Yes, sir. So make sure you watch game 6 with Bluff City Media at High Cotton Brewing. We have beer. We have deals on beer. We got merchandise giveaways, pre-game, post-game show, and obviously Grizzlies basketball. So pull up High Cotton. It's also going to be presented by Street Cars Memphis as well. So shout out to them for helping us host this this game 6 watch party with High Cotton Brewing. Make sure you follow all of our work over at bluffcitymedia.co. Make sure you subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel where you can watch GBB Live and also On the Bluff with Gabe Kuhn and Christian Fowler. And make sure you check out all of our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts and become a Bluff City Media Insider today. It is $5 a month. So let's go Grizz. Hopefully the season's not over the next time we record.